and I said, God, I know that you're real, and I know about you, and I've heard that you help people, but why would you want to help me?
Welcome to this week's episode of the His Hill Podcast. My name is Kelly Daugherty, and I'm your host. I have with me today a friend from church. I've known him for about 6 years. I think I met him before that, but really have known him for about 6 years now. His name is Zach Cazalas, and he's a deacon in our church. He's a businessman, and I thought it would be profitable to have him come sit in and just tell us about what the Lord's done in his life. Zach, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Kelly.
It's good to have you. Zach, now you're a native Texan, right?
That's right.
Okay. Tell us where you were born and a little bit about your family background.
Okay. I was born in Corpus Christi, Texas, 1993. I'm 33 years old. A little bit about my family. I've got two brothers, and I'm the youngest of the three.
Okay. Did you grow up in a Christian family?
I grew up in a pretty nominally Christian family.
Okay.
For the first 6-7 years of my life, we were Catholic, and we left Catholicism and walked into the kind of prosperity gospel mega church movement.
What brought you there?
The guy my mom was married to at that time, my stepdad, was kind of pointing out some things about how Catholicism was contradictory to the Bible.
Okay. And
so we branched out from that, and I think maybe through friends or something, we had heard about this church out of Corpus Christi, kind of almost similar to a Joel Osteen kind of church.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So were you in favor of leaving the Catholic Church, or were you just going with the others?
Oh yeah, I had no clue at the time. So I mean, I didn't know what was right or what was wrong. I was still pretty young, and I mean the kind of mega church scene was very fun and energetic, and lights and smoke, and you go to the kids' church and it's all rock band, smoke shows, stuff. So very different than the traditional Catholic Church.
Okay.
But I mean, it all seemed fine to me. I didn't think one way or another of it.
Okay. Would you, looking back, would you consider yourself to be a believer at that time?
Yeah, that's a great question, and something I've always kind of pondered, because I always believed.
Okay.
There was never a time in my life where I knew God was real, and I had heard about Jesus, and I never had a doubt in my heart that was truth.
Okay.
For as long as I can remember, but knowing him in my personal experience came at a later time.
Okay. Well, tell us about the journey to that. How old were you when you would say that? No, I know Christ.
He became known to me when I was 18 years old.
Okay. And so how old were you when you left the Catholic Church?
I was probably about 6, 7.
Okay. So what was the process then from 6 to 18? What did the Lord do to bring you to himself?
Oh boy, that's a great question. Well, I'll kind of just start by saying I was listening to, in preparation of kind of sharing my story here, I was looking at the Hill podcast, and I saw Ryan McCall's name on there, and I was like, oh, that's fun. So I started listening to Ryan McCall's story, and I kind of got to take a step back, and because I start to think like, man, I wish I had a story like that. Our upbringing is just so polar opposite, And I got to catch myself because I started thinking like, man, I wish I had that. But if it wasn't for everything that happened in my life, I wouldn't know God the same way that I do now. And I don't think I would change that.
So tell us about it.
All right. Well, it's a little bit of a heavier testimony probably than most people's, but it's my story. So about 6 years old, my parents get a divorce, and my dad leaves the house. He was an alcoholic. They were both RNs. My dad was a critical care nurse. My mom was a critical care nurse, and they separated at the age of 6. The few memories I have of him, he would be pretty drunk. We would be I remember just getting pulled over, riding with him in the car, and he was getting arrested for DWI. And I was probably 4 years old at the time, 4 or 5.
And you have a memory of this.
And I just remember being taken to the police station, and the cops are kind of like taking care of me at the time. And it's one of the few memories I have of my dad. And others was just seeing him a little bit at it was like almost like a place you go to where one parent isn't fit to see their child. So I'd have to go to like a center for him to have rights to visit with me. That was pretty brief. I just have a few memories of that. And next thing I know, I'm 8 years old, and I got pulled out of school, and they just said, your dad's sick and he doesn't have much longer to live. And he passed away in the ICU from cirrhosis of the liver when I was 8.
Wow.
So after that, my mom, she's raising 3 boys, and she wasn't making the best decisions at the time. I mean, she worked a lot, but she ends up getting remarried pretty quick to a guy who became my stepdad for the next 7 or 8 years, and he was pretty abusive. So during that time, I started to develop a lot of anxiety because I didn't know how he was going to act when he would get angry. A lot of domestic violence in the house. So there was times when he would get taken to jail for that. And my mom would get back with him. And I just became very anxious as a kid. And because I didn't know what was going to happen in the house. I didn't know when he would have like fits of anger or rage. So I went on for quite some time. When I was 15 years old, it kind of came to a head where I came home from school one day, and he had basically like stolen everything out of our house, took whatever my mom had, and he wasn't even really working at the time. He was kind of just like using my mom, and he ends up leaving, and I was pretty much living in fear because I thought he was going to come back and kill my mom. So shortly after that, we find out that he had some encounters with some police officers, went to jail again for running from cops, and he ends up committing suicide.
Wow.
And I remember hearing about it, and it was like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders because I was just afraid all the time. I was afraid that something was going to happen to my mom, or something was going to happen to one of us during the time that he was alive. So I was 15 years old at the time. My 2 brothers were each a year apart. They're 16, 17. we go into high school. I go into high school. My mom's working a lot. That was kind of like her prerogative. She it's almost like maybe she escaped through work or something. She provided for all of us physically, but emotionally and spiritually, we were, and discipline wise, we were lacking. So she was kind of providing for us, giving us the things that we wanted. But I go into high school, and I really wasn't a bad kid, but up to that point, and I ended up starting to make some pretty bad decisions in high school. Some of my friends, we were kind of in the cool kid scene, and started getting introduced to, invited to my first parties and things like that. So I started experimenting with different drugs. And I remember taking some for the first time, and I remember feeling like relaxed. Like it was like I had never felt calm, or they calmed me down. And a big part of my testimony is going to kind of go down this path a little bit, but it wasn't the first time of taking drugs that I became addicted. I remember thinking, I'm not addicted right now. It kind of calmed me down, but I didn't feel addicted to anything right away. And it wasn't the second or third time I did them that I became addicted. But as time went on in high school, and it kind of became it was a recreational thing, kind of at parties, it did become more of a habit.
Was it always, did the addiction come, or even the beginning stages, the use, was it always because of the calming effect? That it would give you something that you didn't have without?
I think so. I think there was a lot of hurt in my heart.
Yeah.
That as a kid, I didn't process it, and definitely not until I was an adult, of just my dad not being there for me. Even into my late 20s, early 30s, I still would have times of like, man, I really wish my dad would have been there for me. And
yeah, I wonder if that's not true for all of us, that the majority, if not all, of the mistakes we make in life, the bad decisions, come from a desire for something good.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I had that, that's the cliche thing that people say, I had that God-sized hole in my heart.
Yeah.
That I needed. I needed to feel loved, comforted, accepted. And I was just missing all those things.
That's what we were designed for.
Right.
We were created for this, so it would be natural for us to desire this, even if we don't understand what this is. And so that's the common denominator for all of us in our search, is to search for the filling of that void.
Right.
So it would make sense, after what you've explained, that what you've gone through as a child, the anxiety that it understandably brought, that taking these drugs for the first time and sensing a calm would all of a sudden be very alluring. It's like, is this what I need? Is this what I've been looking for?
Well, that's exactly how it started. I remember, and I was doing a laundry list of different drugs, but I remember thinking, like, this is what life's all about. This is what makes you feel good. And it sounds crazy, but for me, it was the truth, because I didn't have it in my normal life. I didn't have it growing up. So a couple years passed in high school, and, the partying increases, drug use increases. I go into my senior year in high school, and I think up to that point, my brothers were kind of around. They were in high school in the grades above me. Mm-hmm. And being the third born, I was a lot more daring.
Okay.
And I was a little bit fearless. So once I was kind of more on my own and by myself, I was kind of getting full blown. into I would use drugs at school all the time. I'd go to school high on drugs. I'd get out of school and go home and just continue doing the same thing. So I wasn't homeschooled. I got sent home from school. It's kind of the joke. So my senior year in high school, I got caught up with some different, I think they call them like class 2 drugs, because I was selling drugs at school. I got caught up. I caught 3 felony charges that year. Not too long after that, I got arrested for a second time for driving intoxicated. And at that point, I knew my life was just kind of starting to go nowhere. And I was seeing my friends go off and get accepted to the different colleges, UT, A&M. And I had wanted to go in the military or go to college, but once I was facing felony charges, it was no longer an option for me. I got rejected to the schools I applied to. I wasn't able to apply to the military because I had pending felony charges. So when that became a realization for me, the kind of little bit of hope I had for kind of a future and doing things got pretty crushed. And so drugs became even more of a crutch. And I would say the second half, like leading up to my high school graduation, I was pretty full-blown addicted. My close friends at the time were also using as well, and the little bit of good friends I had didn't want to hang out with me because the choices I was making were pretty bad.
Right.
So I graduated high school and I couldn't hold a job anymore. I got fired from, I think I was waiting tables. I got fired from that. And I remember just at that point, I didn't have anything. I had no friends. I knew I was being heavily addicted to drugs, but it was hard for me to admit, like, at what point would I call myself a drug addict? I'm not sure. But there's a great quote from Mike Wells. He says, "You can't disown something until you own it." And that summer, I remember I went on a walk one night, and I had always heard about God, and I knew he was real, and I knew Jesus was real. And I went on a walk one night, and I was completely by myself. I was walking down the street. It was like midnight. I was walking through the city of Corpus Christi, and it was like I kind of had a supernatural experience. And I remember walking down the street and looking up into the sky. It was dark. It was nighttime. And I remember just having this feeling that God was listening. And I can't explain it, but I just started talking out loud. And I said, "God, I know that you're real, and I know about you, and I've heard that you help people, but why would you want to help me?" And at that point, I could not wrap my head around, why would God want to help somebody like me? Because I made the mess. I chose to be a drug addict. I chose to lead my friends to drugs and get them using. Why would God want to help me? And I said, but if you change me and you change my life, I'll serve you for the rest of my life. And about 2 weeks after that, I had went to my house. My mom was there, and she had started dating a guy, and I didn't want nothing to do with him because obviously, you know, my past history with dad, stepdad, I was like, I'm not interested in another male role model in my life or whatever. Well, he was a little bit different. He was an FBI agent, a pretty good one too. He was, I think he got the, what do you call it? He got an award for FBI agent, special agent of the year, like over 10 years in a row.
Oh, wow.
He's a pretty unique guy. Well, he comes to my house and he was friends with my mom and they were kind of starting to date. Well, he knew the situation that I was in and he had seen me, you know, in my days that I was using drugs. And he comes to my house and he says, you have a choice to make today. We're going to call the police right now and we're going to file a restraining order on you. Pack your bags, leave, don't ever come back. You're not to come back to this house. Don't talk to your mom. Don't talk to me. Or you can go to Teen Challenge. And that was the first time in my life that I really had an ultimatum placed. And I knew I was fed up with everything that the drugs had to offer because what it promised was peace and comfort and, you know, short-lived joy. It was a bait and switch. It ruined my life. I lost everything. I lost my hopes of going to college. I lost hopes of having a career in the military. I lost all my friends. My family didn't want anything to do with me anymore. So, you know, looking back, I'm really glad that I took that road to the end quickly and saw what it was about. And I knew I didn't want it anymore. And so I said, okay, I'll go to Teen Challenge.
Were you mad at him for this, or were you relieved, or?
You know, in that 2 weeks after I said that prayer, I remember knowing what I needed. And I remember knowing I need to be around godly people. And I need to be around, you know, because at the time my friends were, you know, I remember 5 of my friends that I was hanging out with, 3 died that year from overdosing, and 2 became very heavily involved in gangs. They were gang members, and one of them became a murderer.
Oh, wow.
And so I knew I had to get out of it. That year, it was just maybe a month prior to that, I had overdosed for my second time. And the second time I overdosed, I woke up, I had taken a handful of pills, and I remember waking up to a doctor. He was doing a sternal rub on me. So a sternal rub is whenever you make a fist really hard, and I mean you're just rubbing somebody's sternum with like all your strength to try to get them to snap out of it, and that's what it took for me to wake up. And so I would say I was, you know, fairly close to overdosing and passing away. Sorry, I forgot your question leading up to that.
Yeah, I was wondering if you were you angry at this choice you had to make?
No, I think I was relieved.
Okay.
Because I couldn't do it but on my own. Like I wanted to get free. I wanted to stop using drugs. I remember there were even times where I would be driving and I would have, you know, different things in my pocket, and I'd throw them out the window driving, or I would go home and I'd want to give it up, so I'd flush it down the toilet.
Yeah.
But then I would just go back to it. It at that point, it was a lot more than, you know, it wasn't a hobby. It was like I was physically craving this stuff every day. So whenever somebody finally was willing to like step in and help me get off them, I wanted it. So I think I was relieved.
So it was the right thing at the right time. You were in the place you needed to be to have this happen.
Yep.
Okay. So so you went to Teen Challenge.
Yeah.
What was that like? What happened?
Oh, it is awesome. Teen Challenge has such a special place in my heart. There's nothing like it. It's a mess sometimes because the center I went to in San Antonio, it's like 50 to 60 guys there at a time. And it's called Teen Challenge. It's called Teen and Adult Challenge now because it's mostly adults. So when I got there, I was like, why do they call this place Teen Challenge? It's not teens. I was the only teen there. I was 18. And it was all adults, 20s, 30s, 40s, who were trying to get sober. I got there and it was like I thought it was like a boot camp. The one I went to, it was very strict, very structured. You wake up at 5:30, you shave, get ready for the day. You had to dress a certain way, belt, tuck your shirt in, wear a pillow. And then 6 o'clock, you need to be in the prayer room and you get down on your knees for 30 minutes every day.
Okay.
And then they would do the same thing at lunchtime, get down on your knees for 30 minutes in the prayer room. In between that, you go to work on the property. So they had like a wood shop where we would make a bunch of crosses or woodwork. And on the weekend, we'd go out and sell them and stuff like that. At night, you go study the Bible for 2 hours and do Bible classes. And you do that for a whole year. It's a live-in facility. So whenever you go, you don't have a phone, you don't have money. You get like 2 calls a week out to your family. So, but it's such a special place for me because that's where I came to know the Lord intimately through having a prayer life. And, it being forced, it was like, I liked it. I liked the structure. I liked.
So you wanted it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was at that point, I would say like I was on fire for the Lord.
Okay.
Yeah. I was very excited. I couldn't get enough of having a relationship with him.
Okay. So it was a year, you said?
Yep. It's 12 months.
Okay. A 12-month program. Pretty intense. The first while had to be kind of rough on you, though.
Oh, yeah. I think even though, I was starting to get to know the Lord more, reading the Bible every day, there would be times where I was still craving drugs for the first several months. I remember going into the facility, they gave us a pile of forms to fill out. And the director had given them to me for the admissions to, just basic information, your name, where you live, social, stuff like that. And I couldn't fill it out. My mind had become so fried from just different drugs I was taking. It was overwhelming. I couldn't fill out my own personal information. The first 3 days I was there, I couldn't get out of bed. I was just having withdrawals and cold sweats. And they actually sent me home after 3 days because they said you need to go and withdraw somewhere else because I was just completely not functional.
Okay. Wow.
So my dad had come back. He picked me up. I spent, let me back up. My mom's boyfriend at the time he came and picked me back up. I spent a week with him, and he's a very godly man. And he gave me this book during that time. It's this book called Experiencing the Holy Spirit by Henry Blackaby. And during the week I stayed with him at his house, he didn't let me have my phone or nothing. He just gave me this book to read. And, so I remember reading it, and I knew every page I was reading, I was like, I've been missing this my whole life. I've been missing the Holy Spirit in my life. And I was ready to start living a life with the Lord. So,
wow.
yeah.
So just seeing God's hand on all of this, His sovereignty, you know, that you go to this program, you can't physically handle it yet. So they send you home for a short time, and it's, you know, during that time, it's just how all of this builds on each other. And so now, okay, so then you come back and you get back into the program.
Yeah.
You spend a year there.
Yep.
That's okay. That's incredible. And after the program, what did you do?
Okay, so that's a great question. They asked me to stay on as an intern, and I wanted to do it. I wanted to help the people that were in the same shoes that I was in. Mm-hmm. You know, it felt like I had to give back to the program that had helped me so much. The Lord had put it on my heart to also go to Bible school.
Oh, really?
And so I applied to, went to go look at a couple different Bible schools. I looked at His Hill and one other Bible school. The application I sent in had gotten denied because I was still facing felony charges. And during my 12 months at the Teen Challenge Center, I went to go see the judge for the first time, and I had got a court-appointed attorney. My parents didn't pay for an attorney for me. So when you get a court-appointed attorney, it's kind of like they're forced to be there, and they don't really do a whole lot for you, right? Mm-hmm. They just kind of show up. Well, that was my situation. I go there for the first time, and we go before the judge, and, you know, the judge says, okay, this is the case that you're facing, these felony charges and this, and you need to speak with the DA and the district attorney and find out what kind of, essentially like a plea deal that you're going to enter into, like, you know, community service, serve time, pay fines, things like that. So we said, okay. So the second meeting we had, we go to see the judge again, and I talked to my attorney, and she says, well, I haven't been able to get a hold of the DA for one reason or another. So, okay. So we go see the judge. She tells this to the judge, and the judge says, okay, so we're going to reset this case one more time. So we go there for the third time, and the attorney makes the same statement to the judge, saying that she's not ready to handle my case. And I remember smelling alcohol on the attorney's breath. I mean, it was like 9 a.m. And so she was drinking on the job. I think, you know, she was an alcoholic herself. And the judge gets upset and said, you need to be ready. You need to speak with the DA and figure this out, and you need to be ready to go to court the next time. And so she reassigns it for the fifth time. We go back to the court for the fifth appointment. I mean, this is very abnormal. And the same thing happens. The attorney I had makes an excuse of why she wasn't ready, because the DA was running for election or something like that. And the judge was pretty upset. And so, but she, you know, reinstates the court case for another couple months. So what should have just been, you know, over in a couple months ends up being this like over a year long court process. And looking back on it now, the Lord had planned it all out. I graduated from Teen Challenge. I go back to that courthouse, and the staff member who was taking me to court, we were on the way, because we're coming from San Antonio to Corpus Christi. It's about like a 3-hour drive. And on the way to the courthouse, that staff member that took me that day, he had forgot to bring my court papers. And about an hour away, he realizes it, and he didn't know where to go. And I didn't know where to go either. Oh. I I had always had somebody take me, and I wasn't super familiar with downtown Corpus. I kind of knew generally where it was. And we were also running late to that court case. So I remember we were driving downtown to go to this court case. We asked somebody on the street, hey, which direction do we go to this courthouse? And somebody on the street kind of pointed us the right direction. We get there, and we're running late. We get to the elevator, and I remember there's 8 or 9 floors at this courthouse. And the staff member I was with from Teen Challenge, he's a real big guy. He was ex-NFL football player, and he was just sweating bullets because he knew it was a big deal. This wasn't a light case. I mean, it was multiple felony charges. He was sweating, and at that time, I was pretty prayed up. Like, I had a lot of peace.
Did you?
Yeah, I did. I did. I just wasn't worried about it. I knew, okay, I was at that place in my life. I said, okay, Lord, if you want me to go to jail, I'll go to jail. If whatever happens, I know that this is your will for me, and I'm okay with it. So we get into the elevator. We had no idea what floor to go to because he didn't bring my paperwork. So we just hit a button. We go to floor 7. We go up to floor 7. Elevator doors open, and we see these 2 cops standing there. And, we didn't know. There's a bunch of courtrooms in that building. And we just asked these 2 cops, like, hey, guys, like, I'm here for a court case, and I just have no idea where to go. And, they kind of look at us like, we don't know where you're supposed to go either, bud. But they asked, well, what's your name? And I said, my name is Zach Cazalas. And one of the cops, he looks over and he says, oh, I just heard your name called in this room.
Wow.
It's just the Lord, We walk into that room, and I'm late for my court case, so I missed when, the judge called me up. I walk in there, and in front of the judge, there's a guy standing there. He was a heroin addict. And I'm listening to him and the judge speak, and he says, yeah, I'm guilty of the heroin charge. And the judge just says, what do you have to say for yourself? And he's like, nothing. And the judge says, do you have a family? He's like, yeah. She's like, do you have kids? Yeah, I've got kids. And she was like, you don't have anything to say for yourself? And he says, no, I can't get off heroin. And she said, okay. And she says, you're going to go serve 8 years in prison.
Oh, my God. Wow.
And she hit the hammer. And then at that point, she had realized that I had come into the room. And she said, Zachary, come up here. I go up to the judge with my attorney, and she says the same thing. She says, we're not ready to go to court yet. I'm not ready. I haven't had enough time. And it's just the same excuse over again. So she didn't do anything for me on my behalf. And the judge at that point she was done with it. And she says, Zachary, I've been watching you, and I've seen you come into this courtroom time and time again. And I've seen kids like you who are in the same situation, and they don't change. And it becomes a revolving door for them, and they come back, and they never get off drugs. And she said, but I've been watching you, and I can see that you're different, and I can see that you've truly changed. And she said, I just want to let you know I'm so proud of you, and I can see that you're a different person. From
you coming into the courtroom?
Yep.
Those 5 times?
Yep.
Wow.
And she said, I'm very proud of you, and I'm dismissing all your charges.
Oh, wow. Praise God.
Yeah, I remember stepping out of the courthouse that day. It's a nice, sunny, shiny day. And the Lord made himself known to me that day, that he's my defender. It's not an attorney. It's not anybody else, but it's it's the Lord who's my defender, and he's my deliverer. And from that day on, it's one thing to know about God, and it's one thing to go to school or seminary or whatever, and it's a totally different thing to experience him for yourself.
Now, you were 18 at this time.
I was 18 years old.
Okay. So then where do you go? I mean, you're not going to prison.
Yeah.
And you're not, you're not in college. You don't have a job.
Right.
So where do you go?
So I did my internship with Teen Challenge for 6 months. And at that time, the Lord put it on my heart to go to Bible school. So I applied to Bible school for the second time. And, it was a great feeling because I didn't have to, they ask you on the questionnaires, do you have any, legal history? And so I could say no at that time.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like surreal, right? Because you're telling the truth on the paper, even though it's like a partial lie, because it's like, no, I do have a history of having, criminal offenses, but you can say no because they've been dismissed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I could fill it out the paper. I said no. And so I got accepted to Bible school.
Okay.
So it was one thing
that's a great illustration of what it means to be saved by
right.
Christ.
Right.
Yeah. I've got a past.
It's true.
But I am forgiven. It is canceled. It has been, I am redeemed. It's been paid for.
Yep.
And now we can live in that reality. And so same thing for you now. Now you can move forward in that reality that I don't have a record.
Right.
Yeah, wow, what a story. What a great illustration.
I think Charlie says that sometimes on Sunday.
Uh-huh.
If the devil accuses you, it's like, no, it's true. And that's not the half of it, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot more truth, but
that's awesome. So you went to Bible school.
So I went to Bible school. It was a 2-year program up in Pennsylvania, and it was incredible. And at that school, it was kind of similar to Teen Challenge. Well, the guy who started it his name was David Wilkerson, and he was the founder of Teen Challenge. He started this Bible school, and so at that time, I went to the school. I say it was kind of like Teen Challenge. That's not accurate. It was started by the same guy, but it had that similar vibe where when you go to the school, they make you turn in your phone.
Okay.
So it was just a no cell phone campus, and I loved it. I just needed that in my life. I needed to be separated from old friends, just even the temptation to like see where my old friends were at and things like that. So it was great. Studied the Word for 2 years. Left there, and just like many of his Hill students, where do I go from here? I did about 6 or 8 months serving at a orphanage in Alabama, just missionary stuff. I wasn't being paid or anything. I thought that's what I might pursue for my life, just like missionary work. But I think after some time, I was like, no, I want to get a job and I want to be able to provide and just support myself. So ended up choosing the path of getting a degree in the medical field and became a registered nurse in the ER. So that was the next 4 years of my life, just kind of studying, going to college, got my degree, started working in the emergency room.
Did the Lord show himself to you in that profession?
So working in the ER was kind of, I think it's like a paradox for me, because you'd be in the ER room and you'd have ambulances come in all the time. Cops would be coming in all the time with people. And you'd see everything from heart attacks to car wrecks to strokes, all kinds of stuff. And so as a result, you're always carrying emergency medicine in the ER as a nurse. And I remember times where I would have a pocket full of narcotics.
Oh, wow.
I mean some heavy stuff, like vials full of it for my patients.
Yeah.
And then I would be around cops. I'd be working with cops, because they'd have to go in there in the ER. And I remember this is just so funny because I'm free and there's no pull anymore. Like, I mean, zero. There wasn't an inkling of any kind of temptation to
Amen.
use drugs. And I just thought it was the funniest thing. Sometimes, like, the Lord set me free.
Yeah.
Yeah. So working in the ER is kind of a little bit how I met my wife.
Okay.
I got a call one day from my roommate in Bible school. My roommate lived in Florida, and we were very close. We became best friends, still good friends to this day. He was working at a church in Florida, and I was working in the ER, and he calls me one day and he says, "Zach, there's this girl that goes to my church, and I think you'd be interested in her." And I was like, "Matt, I'm not interested in a long distance relationship. I mean, what am I going to do? Call her? And how is that supposed to work out?" Right? It just didn't seem like a possibility. So I told him, "No, I'm not interested." Well, he calls me a couple more times and he tells me, "Oh, she's a nurse too." And it was funny because that interested me because she was in a career and she had a lot of experience in critical care nursing. And I was just a new ER nurse at the time and I didn't know anything. So I was kind of interested to talk to her. So I ended up messaging her, and that was right when I started nursing, was right when COVID started. So it was, in the medical field, it was a total whirlwind. I mean, it was busy as all get out. Nobody really knew what was going on. So if you wanted to go see a patient in your room, you'd have to put a gown on, mask, goggles, gloves. I mean, every time you had an interaction with anybody, there's no families allowed to go see patients. And on top of that, I think they gave me like 5 weeks of training in the ER before I was on my own, which is not a great idea. And looking back on it, I was not set up for success in that field. And so my friend introduced me to Tatiana, and I start talking with her. And being a new nurse, in the nursing world, they say that nurses eat their own. And it's true. There's a lot of bullying in that field, a lot of lateral violence, doctors, and from both doctors and nurses. It wasn't what I was expecting. And so I ended up talking to Tatiana, and I would tell her like, "Oh, this doctor said this or that to me, or this nurse said this." And, she was like on my side. She was like, "Oh, they shouldn't have said that because," and she would tell me, like, I would explain the situation, and it's like I was being bullied. And that happened for a while. I would say a year I was working as a nurse in the ER. I left that job to switch to a day shift job. And then I went to a different place, and it was just the same thing. Same types of people, just a different place.
Really?
And ultimately ended up leaving the profession from that.
Where'd the Lord take you from there?
From there, well, on the weekends, I was a handyman.
Okay.
To get through college. And so that's how I was making my side money. And during COVID, the housing market started exploding. And I was getting calls all the time. And so my part-time job, it was like the door was just open there to leave that profession and take it full-time.
Okay.
So also at that time, when I was talking to Tatiana, and during COVID, there was this big thing called travel nursing, and it still is. It's always been a thing, travel nursing. But during COVID, it was a whole nother level.
Okay.
I mean, it was insanity. So there's a nursing shortage in that field, and during COVID, all the hospitals were on shortages. So the hospitals would entice nurses to leave where they were at because they could get paid more somewhere else. But the problem just multiplied because all the nurses were leaving to go get paid more somewhere else. So when I was talking with Tatiana, long distance dating, I thought, hey, why don't you just move here and we can date? And worst case scenario, if it doesn't work out, well, at least she could have a good job for a little while.
Yeah.
Right. A little good temporary job. Well, good friends of mine, Dawson Loogie, I just look back and the Lord's hand is all over it. I was hanging out with them and I was telling them about this girl, and they were like, well, she can come stay with us at their house. And they opened their home to her and let her stay there. And then within 6 months, I think we were engaged and getting married.
Yeah, Dawson Loogie have both been on the podcast. Loogie several times. Great couple.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, really love the Lord.
Oh, yeah.
And so you guys have been married for how long?
We've been married 5 years now.
Okay.
Yep.
And you have 2 kids.
Got 2 kids.
Yeah.
A third on the way.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's great. And what are some things, we're getting close to the end here, but just curious, now you're married. I mean, this is such a journey from where it started, with a dysfunctional family to now finding yourself, saved, married to a godly woman, and you have your own children. What are some things the Lord's doing in your heart as a husband and as a father?
Every day, I come to the understanding that the Christian walk is not hard. It's impossible. And I can't do it. And anytime I do it in my flesh or in my own strength, it does not work out. And I've just learned that the presence of and the purpose of problems in your life is to bring you, God uses them to bring you near to him. And he's not always trying to get rid of your problems, but he will be with you through those problems, and they're meant to draw you near to him. And so that's been very real for me over the last years. Just realizing there's not one single situation or problem that the presence of Christ cannot fix. And I've seen that through marriage just over and over again. The nearness of Christ just bringing peace in the household when he's needed, and in all areas of life.
Yeah, and there's so much there that we could talk about, because these 5 years I've known you and have seen some of the things that the two of you as a couple have had to deal with, had to walk through, and how the Lord has been faithful to take you through those things, to grow you, to provide for you, and I think really it all comes down to what you just summed it up as, is that I can't do these things. I need the Lord, and he has shown himself faithful.
Yeah.
And, so that's, and I think what that tells us is, you had a question for the Lord, when you were walking on the streets of
Corpus Christi.
Corpus Christi, yeah. That, when you just asked him, God, why would you want to help me?
Yeah.
Why? And I think, the deal is we, in our flesh, we constantly battle with, there needs to be something of me. There needs to be something good there. There needs to be something that I can do. I was reading the other days that when Jesus says, "Let the little children come to me," he says that right after he tells the story of the Pharisee and the tax collector praying. The Pharisee says, "God, look at me, look at what I've done. I'm so thankful I'm not like this guy." Mm-hmm. And then the Pharisee, that guy, prays, and he wouldn't even lift his head up. And he says, Lord, he can't even look up. He says, Lord, I'm a sinner. And Jesus says, the tax collector went away. He went home having, been forgiven. But the Pharisee doesn't. Then Jesus says, let the little children come to me. And, the thought is that we cannot go to him as long as we think, as long as we're fixed on ourselves and what I can do or what I've done. It's not until we see him, we see Christ, that we're in a place where he can bring us to him.
Yeah.
And, so your question, why? God, why would you want to help me? It's like you're the tax collector, your head's down. I'm a mess. And he says, okay, you're in a good place. And he continues to do that with you. Now as a father, as a husband, he continues to do that. Now you're in a good place.
Yeah.
Where you see that you can't. And in seeing that you can't, do you see that I can?
Yeah.
And will you trust me? And so, Zach, I saw you take a big breath there at the beginning of all of this. Do you really want me to go there? Do you really want me to say these things? And yeah, I knew your story, and I did want you to say it. And I appreciate, you being so willing to be vulnerable, to be recorded and have something like this sent all over the world because of what you said there at the end, that I've learned that I can't do anything. I can't be the husband I need to be. I can't be the father I need to be.
That's right.
I need Jesus.
Yep.
And Zach, that's where we all need to be. That we are in need. We need to come to him like little children. And so, thanks. Thanks for being so vulnerable. Thanks for doing this.
Absolutely.
Thank you for listening to the His Hill podcast this week. We hope you enjoyed tuning in to Kelly's interview with Zach Cazalas and that you were encouraged by what you heard. Thank you again for listening. Psalm 147, verses 3 through 5 says, He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. He counts the number of the stars. He gives names to all of them. Great is our Lord and abundant in strength. His understanding is infinite. As life happens and things come our way that we did not foresee, remember that this is the God that you serve, a good God who sees you, knows you, whose understanding is infinite, and who is faithful. Once again, you've been listening to the His Hill podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in with us this week. Remember to keep your eyes fixed on Christ. He is the way, the truth, and the life. I'm Lizzie, and we'll see you next week.